Hey, and welcome to this special podcast takeover from Amsterdam Dance Event 2022, where I was really lucky to be on the ground capturing insights with several industry leaders from label owners, artists, investors, founders, promoters, journalists, and many, many more. ADE is the largest dance music gathering in the world for professionals and fans alike, and it takes place over 5 days with 600 speakers, 2,500 artists, 1,000 events, and 450,000 visitors from around the globe. And after 3 really hard years for our industry, it was honestly incredible to connect again with stakeholders in the music ecosystem and discuss urgent topics such as sustainability for live events, mental health for artists and professionals, social change, and strategies for the future of electronic music. The dates have been announced for ADE 2023, and I already can't wait for next year. So without further ado, let's dive into today's conversation with Ralf Kollmann. You may know him as Mobilee's secret weapon, since he started the label with Anja Schneider way back in 2005. And as many of you might know, it grew into becoming one of the most iconic labels in dance music. Ralf is still running the Mobilee ship, and he's also managing artists like Rodriguez Jr. and Squire, who's a former Formula One driver turned DJ that we'll be having on as a guest next year. So safe to say, I'm really excited for that one. Ralf also sits on the board for Bridges for Music, which is a non-profit that has been empowering young talent from underserved communities in South Africa since 2013. And I actually have a lot to be thankful for to them, because I was scouted at one of their gatherings many, many years ago, and I was taken under the wings of the fellow mission maker and production genius, Francesco Mammi, who taught me everything I need to know about music production, and I still count him as one of my closest musical allies today. So there's a lot to talk about, and if you're an upcoming artist, then this episode should give you a really good insight into the changing music landscape and how to make it work for you. Ralf, thank you so much for joining us today on the show. It's a pleasure to have you on Mission Makers. We're almost at the end of ADE, so how has this year been for you, and what have been some of the goals going into this year's conference?
Yeah, thanks for having me. This year was a special year, of course, after a long forced break due to the pandemic, and it was really good to reconnect with the people, with the scene, and after 2-3 years not being out, being in clubs and festivals so many times and not seeing your colleagues and checking what's going on in the industry, you also don't really know your actual value, even as a label manager, but also as an artist specifically. And it was very difficult to figure out where do we stand, so that was the most important for me and also my artists who came to ADE to get a feel for that, So what kind of feedback and response do we get for the work that we did in the past 2 years especially?
I think there's been, it's definitely been a key common sort of denominator amongst everyone we've spoken to about the ability to reconnect. There's also uncertainty going into this winter, so we don't know what we don't know, right? And the gratitude, for even conferences like ADE to be able to hold a space where we can all kind of come back and reconnect. So
yes, absolutely. And so we are coming out of a crisis, and we thought we can restart now fresh, but it looks like we are facing the next crisis already.
Yeah.
So it's very difficult. So. 22, the year 22 was still heavily affected by the pandemic, So we did a lot of postponed gigs from 2 years ago. It was very difficult to kind of find the best possible schedule, and it was challenging for us, the touring this year. And let's see what 23 looks like.
Yeah.
I think. So a lot of promoters, festivals, labels, and the whole industry in most countries in Europe especially, they got government support. And in 23, nobody's getting that. So maybe some of the also leading promoters, they survived by that.
Yeah.
That doesn't mean that they survive in 23.
Of course.
And on top, we now have an energy crisis. We have a war in Ukraine, and we have an inflation. So let's see how that affects our industry and our societies. So do the people have enough money in their pocket to buy festival tickets for 23, for example? Promoters, costs for productions are doubling. tripling up. That means you need to also increase the festival or club entrance tickets and so on. So let's see where we're going. So what we're facing in the next year. It's going to be very, very challenging again. So yeah, that's what I'm worrying about. And it seems like nobody really has a clear answer here when I talked to people in the industry.
Yeah, and it's very interesting because I've also observed the similar, discussions, and something that could have cost $10,000, like 2-3 years ago is like 60,000, and you can't pass that cost on to the consumer. They're not going to pay, and also what I think a lot of us probably thought in this industry was, after being suppressed for like 2 years, then there's got to be this insatiable appetite to go dancing again, and promoters obviously taking the risk to maybe like have 3 days of a festival instead of 2 to make up their money, but actually that demand wasn't there, and it's very difficult right now to survive in this ecosystem.
And also, so I'm very surprised about a few things, like speaking with promoters especially, that some of the artists especially the big artists, so I expected that everybody is calming down a little bit, I mean, this is also kind of like a reset moment for the industry, maybe also reducing your artist fees.
Sure.
And clubs and festivals maybe focusing on local talents and resident DJs and so on, to, I don't know, there was also a chance, and every crisis also offers a chance to change things and to fix things.
Absolutely.
But what I've heard is it's the other way around. Like some of the big artists and managements, they're like asking for double fee right now and for more fee that just doesn't fit to our current situation. So I'm really surprised about that. And I don't know how, especially promoters, are dealing with that. And maybe hopefully they are strict and say, I'm sorry, maybe then we just take half of the headlines for a festival and fill up the rest with new talents.
It's very disappointing to hear that, because you would think that after going through something, especially the bigger artists, they would have had it easier to survive, given if they had saved in the past from what they've earned.
I think one of the reasons is that these problems are occurring in Europe specifically. We don't have these problems in North America and South America, at least not at that level. So, and some of these big artists, they are kind of like, they're getting these high fees in other continents and want to adopt that to the European scene. So I don't know, maybe that's a possible explanation. I don't know. And I must admit that the North America market and South America market is so strong. It's also a big advantage for us at the moment, especially for the artists I'm representing, Rodriguez Jr., for example. So we are very, very lucky that he's touring a lot in the United States, and we're a little bit independent of what's going on in Europe. But of course, it's still one of our strongest and most important markets, and we want to make sure that we are representing here as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And so let's talk a little bit about Mobilee, because of course, it was launched in 2005 by you and Anja Schneider. And it rapidly took off in Berlin, and it has since become one of the most iconic labels in dance music. So what has that leadership journey been like, running something so huge? And I'm sure you get asked this question a lot, but I'm very curious about this involvement in your leadership journey.
Yeah, of course, in the beginning, it was like we were quite naive, we just had this idea and this passion for music, and we had this opportunity to start a label. And as you just said, very quickly it established to an important label at that time, and then we, Anja and I, we both threw all in and developed it into a music entertainment company, running a booking agency, doing our own events, and kind of like managing, promoting our artists, helping them, and that was a very efficient model for a long time. But then the music industry changed. It became bigger and bigger, and also more professional again. So this 360-degree model, we supported, that we set up for ourselves. That didn't make sense anymore at one point. And of course, around us, there were big booking agencies, super professionalized. Same with PR, and also event productions and so on. So we couldn't really compete with that, with our infrastructure that we had set up. So again, this worked really, really well for a long time, but then we realized we need to change something. We need to adapt to that, and that was always something that was like driving me, like always like trying to look ahead a little bit. So what's happening? So how can we adapt to changes in the industry? If it's about embracing new technologies, new formats, and so on, we always try to be the first, trying out new things. And luckily, we also realized that we need to adapt to this situation, like this, everything getting bigger and more professional, which was in a way a positive effect of the growth of dance music worldwide. And so then we decided to focus on the essentials again. It is like the label, remove all the other parts, make sure that we kind of like find the right external partners to work with. And then that also allowed me to start the management business properly, because otherwise, it's like kind of like conflict situation. You can't do everything for your artists. So, that's actually the story of Mobilee, where we started and where we are right now. And I don't know, during the course, because you were asking for your leadership role, when I don't know, after 5, 6, 7 years, when I realized, I gathered a lot of experiences, maybe also have some like my own insights and ideas about the business. And also when I understood more and more like the complex ecosystem, I had the feeling that I want to share this this knowledge. But it's important to also there's a new generation coming in, a new generation of talents, a new generation of label managers, of promoters, and I realize it's really, really important to share my knowledge, my ideas, and my expertise. So, and I don't know, 5, 6, 7 years ago, I started to speak on panels and also be part of the Association for Electronic Music, which is a platform where we kind of like also push education. And so that was also an important part for me during my journey.
It's very important. And also the newer generations, the way that they're consuming music is completely different as we go into this rapidly evolving, disruptive tech world. The pandemic changing the relationship that fans have with the dance floor. There's so much, and it's confusing as well. Hey, I hope you're enjoying today's show, and of course, if you are, a little review or share with your friends would be much appreciated. But I just want to take a quick pause to share some interesting news that Mission Makers has unexpectedly grown into becoming a boutique podcast agency. And for the last year and a half, we've secretly been producing content for some high-impact brands, from tech unicorns in Silicon Valley to disruptive companies at Davos. So if you're thinking of starting your own show and you're looking for some help, then send us a message, because we would absolutely love to bring your story to life and help you amplify your content while really connecting on a much deeper level with your audiences. Now, let's get back to the show. As somebody who, manages artists like Rodriguez Jr., what would your advice be for emerging artists when they're looking for a manager and that early stage, or that not early stage, but they're at that growth phase of their journey where, getting on good labels, and now it's time to take it to the next stage? What are the kind of key things they should be looking for?
So the first question is like looking for a manager, when and how.
Yes.
I always say like you don't need a manager if there's nothing to manage.
Yeah, of course.
So my general advice is like try to work as hard as possible on your own. Try to understand the music business and the ecosystem as good as possible. Because also a manager, or like working with a PR, or then later with a booking agent, because you are the boss of your own.
Of course.
Yeah. And even with a manager or with a PR or with a booking agent, you should be able to be the boss of your business at the end.
The CEO of the ship.
Exactly. That means you also need to delegate your team at the end. It's not like that your manager is like doing everything for you and you do need to know nothing about anything. You know, a manager can only be as good as you as an artist give him also input, maybe, and guidance. You know, maybe something that you wouldn't expect to hear. Yeah, but I think it's very, very, very important. You know, a manager can't do wonders. You know, he can kind of like take most of the workload off from you, make sure that all this complex stuff is managed properly when it comes to rights and stuff. And of course, he's like, it's his job to find opportunities for you to grow your profile and your business and make money and all that stuff, helping you to take the right decisions. But at the end, you need to be a great artist, and you need to deliver ideas as well. You need to be creative, and it's not only the music that you're producing; it's a bit more these days. It's like the whole personality behind this artist life.
Yes, it's a creator economy, and you know, it's and fans want to know much more than the music, which has a very short shelf life these days, unfortunately. And so, like, where do people go? I mean, where do people go? Does it come to them in a way? Like, should it be at that point? It's an organic thing. It comes to them, you know. And how do they vet, you know, the quality or the, you know, the feeling in a way of this is going to work?
Yeah, I think that's the most tricky thing probably. So, I think as an artist, you should give yourself like a time limit. In a way, you know, so I'm focusing on that now for 2 or 3 years.
Okay.
If it doesn't work out, then maybe I look into something else.
Sure.
I also made really, really good experiences with like artists who were not throwing everything in at once. And we were still, let's say, financially independent because maybe they have another job. They make money and so on. So you should really get it, because once you are putting too much pressure on yourself, you know, I want to become a professional, I want to be successful, it can be very, very difficult for your creativity. It can 100%. Be like killing your creativity in a way, you know, or maybe you're making too many compromises at one point to just survive somehow. Yeah. So, that's something I can recommend to try to be flexible, you know, and actually also as an artist, you need to invest in yourself a little bit, not only making music, not only in your equipment and instruments, maybe also before you have a manager or booking agent, maybe think about like some promotional activities, you know, create some videos and content and whatever, you know, to have like a little package ready before you approach a booking agent or a manager. And another important thing is that you always should start locally, you know, become the hero of your home city first before you do the next steps. You know, I think that's also a very important lesson.
There's some really good advice you gave there. I think before you go all in, you know, you should have that pressure point taken away of like it all has to come through music, because even now it's so complex to make that money through music. Like streaming is not a viable income source, you know, for the most part on its own. And I think the pandemic showed that, because once performance fees were taken away, like you can't survive on what comes in. The government is, you know, it's not equal all around the world. So being able to have something else that you're passionate about, you know, is important. It gives you that time to step away and also get inspired in a different way and bring that. And also, as you say, like it's like you can't, creativity is something that you can't predict when it comes, but you need to be there every day for it to turn up, right? You need to have those habits, and you need to kind of allow it to take place, and you need to be in that right mental frame of mind for it to unfold and for you to be inspired every day, right? And so, talking about technology and like the changing sort of landscape, like what is your kind of like feelings on Web3 and the metaverse, and like, do you have any exciting plans to kind of like be a leader in this space maybe?
So when this NFT metaverse hype came up, we were looking at that, but I don't know, we had the feeling it's not the right time yet. maybe okay to try something out for artists like Skrillex and Richie Hawtin and whatever. But like for the average artist, I don't really see a product or a platform that really makes sense to work with or to pick up. You know? So I don't know. Sometimes I feel like this is all still in development. I remember like a few years ago, we also had this virtual reality hype. Yeah, virtual reality is in a way connected to like Web3, Metaverse, and so on. But that was 4 or 5 years ago, and I remember like when I went to ADE or IMS, everybody was talking about virtual reality and 3D, blah blah blah, experience and life and all that stuff. At the end, nothing happened. You know, we're still waiting for it. You know, maybe this is connected then again in a few years to the Metaverse, obviously. But yeah, I don't know. This is like all very kind of like fragmented still, you know, and very difficult to understand as well. And it's it's a big topic at the moment everywhere, but I don't see this like really taking off within the next 2 or 3 years, you know, or at least not in a way that this is monetizing or making a significant revenue for the average artist, you know. So not in competition to Spotify, Beatport, and other things. So let's see how that goes. But to short long story into short, it's nothing that we are focusing on right now. I'm still waiting a little bit. And but what we tried out is immersive audio production. Okay. I think that's something that's pretty like it's a technology that's it's rolled out. You know, Dolby Atmos, also Apple Music is supporting that Tidal, and also Amazon HD. And there are a few reasons why I think it's worth to look into that and try that out. Because first of all, it's potentially changing the creative process of music production. Secondly, it's a new listening experience for the audience. At the moment, via headphones, and that's one of the reasons why it's so interesting right now. Because like before last year or 2 years ago, you needed like this like big hi-fi 9.1.1 setup at home, and now there's a technology that actually transforms that into a binaural stereo format. With some compromises, you can experience that on your headphones right now. So it's accessible for everybody. Exactly. So, but even with a new laptop or with the latest generation of a sound bar at home, you can experience that. So listening experience, and maybe in a year or two, you will be able to experience that as well in a club or at a live festival with supporting that technology. L-Acoustic and Maya Sound, they have systems ready to roll out and so on. So I think this is something that you can like embrace already because it's existing, it's happening right now. And the third argument why I'm supporting that is my hope that this is also changing the streaming industry a little bit. You know, Spotify is the market leader, I think, with 75% market shares at the moment. Spotify also has the worst deal. You know, the payout for Spotify is not good compared to Apple Music, for example. So, and this now puts a lot of pressure on Spotify because they have the shittiest quality you can imagine. But nobody knows that and realize that, especially the new generation. They grew up with that. You know, they are buying headphones for €300, but they are listening to like crap quality compressed music for free with their freemium subscription at Spotify. So I hope that some people, because once you listen to music via Tidal or Apple Music or Amazon HD, it's such a difference, and people need to try that. And then on top, because like with this new subscriptions, you get it lossless, and on top, you get the Dolby Atmos or spatial audio or immersive audio experience. Yeah. If the content is there and if you want to. So if Spotify maybe in a few years decides to we want to increase our quality right now because the competitors are doing that, and maybe we are losing a lot of our subscribers to them, so we are skipping the freemium subscription model now. This would be a big change in our industry. This would probably double up the streaming income for a lot of artists. So that's my little speech for Dolby Atmos and immersive audio.
The final question I'd like to ask you is talking about timelines and talking about change. What, in your opinion, is the single most important thing that needs to happen in the music industry 1 year from now, 5 years from now, and 10 years from now?
Oof. I think I already mentioned one.
Okay.
I think there's an initiative started by Impala, and there's some really, really good and important initiatives in there, or arguments. It's about the streaming industry that needs to change a little bit, and I think I just mentioned it. It's Spotify at first place, but also all the others. It's the transparency. How the algorithms actually behind the royalty payments. It's like it's very difficult to understand. The publishers don't really understand what's going on there. Everybody gets like a few microcent here and there, but there are like a lot of open questions, and I think that's significant for our industry. In the short term, the revenue streams from streaming, especially. So then the other thing is there's also another campaign called Get Paid from the Association for Electronic Music that got started I think now 6 or 7 years ago. We made little progress, but this is about also money distribution for royalties that clubs and festivals are paying for the music that gets played, and it's going through the neighbor rights and so on. But it's so we would think that in 2023 we have technologies that are able to monitor the music that gets played in clubs and at festivals,
and automatically,
and then automatically it's a track by track payout. And you think about a streaming on, let's say, Apple Music. This is maybe 0.02 cent. If your music gets played on a festival with 20,000 people, maybe that's 15 euro per play. And if you would get this income source on a transparent base, on a track by track monetization, this would also be a big change for rights holders.
And it's nothing compared to the fee that the artist is getting paid.
It's not even a percent. It's about the correct distribution of that money. To make sure that this is not going into the wrong channels or to the wrong artists. And that's still very important. Another important thing is also what I mentioned before, education. So we have a problem with getting the right people in the positions. If it's at labels, at promoters, festivals, there's so many jobs where you need a special education or study, and we don't really have that educational system. Most of the people working in the music industry, they kind of started at one point and are improvising. But if we want to make a step forward and really want to have a certain quality in job profiles and all that stuff. We need to figure that out somehow. On the other hand, most of the music industry companies, they can't pay proper salaries.
Yeah.
You know?
It's a chicken and egg.
It's a chicken and egg. And why? Because we are missing out on some revenues.
Exactly,
you know, so it's all connected.
Yeah. That's true. I mean, I think education-wise, I think there's much more than there was when, you know, even when I started, which was 15 years ago. And, you know, today, I mean, in the UK, DJing and music production is part of our music GCSE, you know, and that changes fundamentally the way that kids, because that's the way kids today experience music. Like, even if they're not going to go off and become a professional DJ, they want to have the app on their phone and be able to do it at house parties, right? But then you have places such as Point Blank and, you know, many different places where they do offer these music industry management courses. But I think part of it is also having the right mentorship. I think that's like really, really important, because there's a lot, it's the Wild West somehow in this industry, and there's a lot changing and there's a lot to navigate. And I think going back to Web3 as well, like, yes, it's a space where it's being defined as early adoption phase, but at least I think what everyone's excited about is a chance to create a better internet, a better, like, a place where some of the issues we've had in the past, like, they cannot continue in this manner. And how long will it continue before it breaks? And we need to start something different and start something new. And it may take 10 years, like, who knows, you know, this could just be, like you said, like the hype around VR, and nothing really ever happened with scalability and adoption. But the more people that, you know, speak about it and contribute and, you know, make a difference, it's all incremental gains, right?
Yes, hopefully.
Yeah. Well, Ralf, thank you so much for joining us. It's been a pleasure to have you on the show and to hear your insights.
Yeah, thank you.
I hope you've enjoyed this episode as much as we enjoyed having these conversations. If you want to grab a copy of today's show notes, then head over to missionmakers.com/ADE, where you'll also find notes from all of our previous episodes. And if you're interested in talking to me about future opportunities at ADE, producing podcasts, or coming down to some of my music and motorsports events, then you can reach out to me at Mission Makers or at dj.n1nja on Instagram and TikTok. Thank you as ever for listening. Until next time, keep it laser focused.